But Mark, let's move on into the second half of our mock draft. Before we do, though, make sure if you're listening on podcast services around the world, hey, maybe you're on iTunes, maybe you're on your iPhone, maybe you're on Apple Podcasts, make sure to go rate and review the podcast. And I'm also looking at you if you're on YouTube. I know you have an Apple. I know you just have an Apple sitting there ready to eat it. Maybe. But you have an Apple account. I know that we have iPhone users out there because I see the analytics. I know we have people watching us that have iPhones. Make sure to, even if you're on YouTube, go and rate and review the Onside Kick. It would really help us out. We're trying to get that 5-star rating. I believe the Onside Kick is also at a 4.5 rating right now out of 5, which is pretty damn good. It's not perfect, but that's okay. Nobody's perfect. Mark, let's start with you. Take us through your second half, 17 through 32.
At 17, the Cleveland Browns are going to go with DeAndre Baker, the cornerback out of Georgia. Then I got at 18, Yodny Kajust, because I love that juice. Offensive tackle out of West Virginia. Then we got the Titans going with Montez Sweat, defensive end out of Mississippi State. 20, Steelers going with Devin Bush, linebacker out of Michigan. 21, the Seahawks going to go with Deontay Thompson, the safety out of Alabama. Then we got 22, Ravens going to Trey Adams, another offensive lineman out of Washington. Finally, or not finally, but another offensive lineman. Going at 23 to the Texans, Max Sharping, offensive tackle, Northern Illinois University. Then we got 24, the Raiders from the Bears, going to N'Keal Harry, the wide receiver out of Arizona State. The Eagles at 25 are going to go with Julian Love, cornerback out of Notre Dame. Then 26, Colts, Jalen Ferguson, defensive end, Louisiana Tech. Next, I'm going to have at 27, the Raiders, this time from the Cowboys, going with Dexter Lawrence, defensive tackle out of Clemson. Then the Chargers at 28, another defensive tackle, Christian Wilkins out of Clemson. So that's a fun one back-to-back. 29, Patriots, Noah Fant, tight end, Iowa. Then we got, so the answer to your question, the last one, no Fant's not available. At 30, the Rams going with a little guy, Jackie Polite, linebacker out of Florida. I like him. He's got a fun name to talk about.
Did you say Jackie Polite?
Yeah, and to pronounce incorrectly.
Jakai.
Yeah, he's got a fun name to pronounce incorrectly. Chiefs 31 going with Derek Brown, defensive tackle out of Auburn. And finally, the Packers from the Saints. Don't worry, Packers did not win the Super Bowl. A.J. Brown, wide receiver, Ole Miss.
So it happens every time.
Mm-hmm.
You know how, like, you go, oh, Jackie Polite, and it's like, we screw up names all the time. We're not perfect.
Well, and it's also fun sometimes.
The thing I am going to say right now, I should learn how to say his name because I had the Rams go with him in my 2.0. I am going to screw up a name again from Old Dominion, so I'll apologize right now. But at 17, the Browns, they're going to do the same thing you had them do. DeAndre Baker, quarterback from Georgia. Then my Minnesota Vikings, we get Gary Kubiak. The offense should be better. And we're going to go Trey Adams. We need some offensive line help. We need to bolster that offensive line. Then the Titans, they need someone to catch balls out there. They're going to go with N'Keal Harry, the wide receiver from Arizona State. Then the Steelers are like, man, maybe we wanted that wide receiver, but they'll go Julian Love, cornerback from Notre Dame. Seahawks, just like you, are going to go Deontay Thompson, the safety from Alabama. Ravens, bolstering some defense right here. Some pass rush, Montez Sweat, the defensive end from Mississippi State. Then again, just like you, the Texans going Max Sharping, the OT from Northern Illinois. Then the Raiders via the Bears, they're going to go with Brian Burns, the pass rusher from Florida State. Then the Eagles go Byron Murphy, the cornerback from the Washington Huskies. The Colts, they are going to get a steal in my mind. Christian Wilkins, the defensive tackle from Clemson, to bolster that defense, and another great pick for them. And then the Raiders, this time again via the Cowboys, they're going to go A.J. Brown, get Derek Carr, a receiver, because they traded one of his this past year. So they trade Amari Cooper to the Cowboys. Then with that pick, they take the wide receiver out of Ole Miss. Then the Chargers, they're going to go with Derek Brown, defensive tackle out of Auburn. The Patriots, they will go Ja'Kai Polite, the outside linebacker from the Florida Gators. then the Rams, the name that I knew I continue. I'm like, oh, I should look up, and then I never do. O'Shane Ziminis, I hope I said that right. Outside linebacker, Old Dominion. Then the Chiefs go Trayvon Mullen, cornerback from Clemson. And then last but not least, the Packers, pick number 32 via the Saints, go Damian Harris, the running back from Alabama. And you say like, oh, Noah Fant not available. Well, in mine, he still is available. That's why I had brought him up. The first team I want to ask you about is I mentioned his name during the first half of our mock draft. I'm going to mention the team right now, the Steelers. How will the Antonio Brown situation affect their draft, if at all?
I don't know. I don't really think that it will, because there are still good weapons out there for Big Ben or whoever in the future. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster is a great wide receiver who maybe it'll be a little tougher if an Antonio Brown is not there to demand a lot of coverage. But they've got great weapons. They've got a good running back. They've got a good running back that they're not using, and who knows what's going to happen with him, with Le'Veon Bell. But they had a great fill-in, and this team did fine. The problem for this team was just that they kind of imploded a little bit, and getting rid of two, really, with getting rid of Le'Veon Bell and then getting rid of Brown as well, those are hopefully going to help out that locker room. However, it's not getting rid of Big Ben, which I think would help that locker room out quite a bit. But, that's just because I think a lot of these problems are also kind of stemming from him. I don't think it really changes much.
See, I'm going to say this. I don't think it changes their first-round plans. I think after that, it might change what they're going to do. And the reason why I say that is, first you got to ask yourself this question, is when are they going to trade Antonio Brown? Is it going to be before the draft? Probably not. Is it going to be after the draft? If so, yeah. Like, if he's getting traded, I think it happens between post-draft and beginning of the season. At the absolute latest, trade deadline. Like, I don't think at this point, I don't think he gets past the trade deadline of next season as a Steeler. But I know for sure that I don't think he's getting traded before the draft. And the only way he's getting traded before the draft, like, the Steelers would love to trade him before the draft, because then they could try to finagle a first-round pick this year out of a team. Like, for example, the 49ers, who have been linked to, like, Jerry Rice is like, we're going to make it happen. We're going to get Antonio Brown here. Oh, Antonio Brown really wants to come here. You don't think the Steelers would love to be like, hey, John, like, John calls up, what do you want for, like, what's your asking price? And they go, give us a second overall pick.
Yeah.
There's your outside linebacker. They get Josh Allen, and then they get a defensive player later on, or like a team that I also heard, the Broncos were interested. Getting a top 10 pick out of the Broncos. Like, that's why I don't think they're going to make an Antonio Brown trade before the draft, because not that the Steelers won't want to. Other teams are going to say, no. We're not giving up a pick this year. Maybe next year, because we don't know. Like, you always go into the next season going, we're going to be a good team, and then you're not, and you go, oh, why did we trade that pick? But I look at their wide receivers without Antonio Brown, and what I see right now is James Washington, Juju Smith, Ryan Switzer, Darius Hayward-Bayes on this depth chart, Eli Rogers is still on this depth chart. And the thing, and I'm not putting them in any particular order with that, that's a wide receiver core that does not scare me. Like, Juju is good. James Washington, what do you think his year 2 is going to look like in the league? And that's where I look at this team. Even like, look at this. Hayward-Bay, up after this year. Eli Rogers, who I mentioned, restricted free agent this offseason. Justin Hunter, I didn't mention. He was injured. he's an unrestricted free agent this offseason. So really, besides Antonio Brown, the only people you have under contract are Juju, James Washington, and Ryan Switzer. That's why, for me, I don't think it changes their first-round plan. It changes their second, their third, because you look at right now, the top 3 needs for the Steelers are cornerback, inside linebacker, and edge rusher. You could take those with your first 3 picks, and they've got picks at 20, 52, and 84. But now, because of Antonio Bryant, you might have to say, well, you know, we really do need an inside linebacker. But at 52, let's go wide receiver. We need someone to be the number 2. Like, especially if a DJ Metcalf is there. Yeah, we're going to need to go wide receiver now. I would have loved to go defense, but we got to go wide receiver
But they still do have good tight ends. They still do have a good running back. So they can get away with not doing it. It doesn't mean that they don't in the second round say, yes, let's take somebody if there's a good wide receiver there. I mean, you should always take the best player that's available. But they have talent to where they can get by. Rebuilding a defense is going to be very helpful when you look at this and say, well, we got to go against Baker twice a year. We're going to have to go against Lamar Jackson twice a year. You know, Andy Dalton was hurt this past year, but he's still a good quarterback. We still face good quarterbacks. And the real thing that you look at if you're the Steelers, we got to face Tom Brady. That's what it is. You have to beat Tom Brady. Yeah. You should always be focused on how you beat Tom Brady, and a good defense is what you're going to need.
And, I mean, you mentioned those tight ends. I mean, it's easy. Like, Jesse James is a guy, if he comes back, he'll get re-signed. But really, the only one under contract right now is Vance McDonald still. Like, Vance McDonald, to me, maybe because I'm thinking of more of a fantasy mindset, he's not a guy that, if I'm a defense, Vance McDonald isn't a guy that strikes fear into me because I'm not Chris Conte. Like, if I'm Chris Conte, I'm freaking out because they'll
a big thing when it comes to the Steelers is it's not just these individual pieces. It's the offense as a whole.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a throw it on us, Big Ben, or it's not a, you know, we really need to shut down this run. It's everything. They have the run game. They have a passing game. They've got it all. They do need to improve some of these pieces, sure, but they've got enough to where the offense as a whole is still going to be good no matter what.
And like I'm looking at their defensive kind of players, and this is yet again the double-edged sword they're going to have to play with in the draft. Is you could always say like, oh, look at like Artie Burns isn't up this year. Joe Hayden is still with us. They drafted Terrell Edmonds last year at corner. Oh, John Bostic, he's still there. TJ Watt's still there. Bud Dupree has another year before he's up. And I look at it and go, the interesting draft strategy that they're going to have to dance around is what's going to be the value to you? Is it going to be, hey, we can pass on this because we've got talent at linebacker, let's go get an offensive weapon? Or what I think might win out, unless they really get scared at their wide receivers, like they could take a wide receiver in the 4th, 5th, 6th. I just don't think a 4th, 5th, 6th wide receiver is going to add the type of talent that you need, especially if you're going to trade Antonio Brown. Yet again, they could also add a wide receiver in free agency, if they want one. But the reason why if I'm them, I focus on defense for the first 3 picks is because with these contracts, a lot of them, except for maybe the defensive line, are up next year. So for me, I'm thinking I don't want to draft that rookie next year and he's got to come in and replace. I want to draft that like linebacker. I want to draft that linebacker now, give him a year in the NFL to work. And then if I don't re-sign someone like, let's say, a John Bostic, then it's like, okay, this rookie that I drafted is not a rookie. He's going into a sophomore year, and he's had some growth in the league already.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, this is a good defensive draft. It's the right time to load up on defensive players.
The other team I want to ask you about is we talked about their head coaching hire in Matt LaFleur with the Packers. But what I want to ask you particularly is, what to you does Matt LaFleur change the Packers' draft strategy? Because the thing I find interesting is for you had the Packers go defense and then offense. Mm-hmm. I've bought in. I've said, you know what? We got Matt LaFleur. Let's go ahead. We went double corner last year. Let's go double offensive weapon this year. Let's go ahead and get Marquise Hollywood Brown, a deep threat for Aaron Rodgers this year, and then pick 32. This is my sneaky kind of dark horse pick. I am convinced that if Damian Harris is going to go in the first round, it will be to the Packers. And the reason why, Matt LaFleur saw big success last year with Derrick Henry. Why not get the Packers? And I know that Packer fans are going to bring up Aaron Jones. I forgot to mention him in that Packer segment. But Matt LaFleur will look at it and go, I can get the running back that I had so much success with last year.
You say so much success, but we're talking about the Titans, who really were...
The Titans didn't...
kind of just mediocre offense.
I mean, of course, mediocre offense, yes. But there were games where Derrick Henry had good rushing games.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe LaFleur could see Damian Harris and go, hey, that's the type of running back I ideally want for my system, like I had in Derrick Henry, and I will win more games here because I don't have Marcus Mariota anymore. I have Aaron Rodgers. I almost said Andrew Luck. I have Aaron Rodgers.
I don't think that Matt LaFleur changes a single thing because the Packers needed wide receivers before this. They need wide receivers still. They also still need a lot of help on defense. The Packers are a team that have a lot of needs, and that's been masked by Aaron Rodgers, and will probably continue to get masked by Aaron Rodgers if he gets out of the almost slump that he was in this year. I don't think Matt LaFleur changes anything because to me, Matt LaFleur is still a hire that was, hey, Matt, we just need you to kind of, I guess, be here.
And don't rock the boat.
Yeah, don't really talk to Aaron. Let him do his thing. He's not interested in you. Or the flip side of, hey, we need you to become Aaron Rodgers' best friend. Just do whatever Aaron wants you to do.
You spent a season with Sean McVay, right? All right, you're hired.
Yeah, this is just a scenario where the Packers want somebody who's just going to come in and just be a different face, really, and hopefully not mismanage the clock like Mike McCarthy likes to do.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's really that much to it, and I honestly still don't get Matt LaFleur's hire because it was too early. And I know we had that whole big discussion about in the NFL now you have to hire early. But it's just one of those ones where you look at last year and you go, but he wasn't good last year. The Titans offense was not good. Yeah, the running game was fine, but the passing game was really bad.
Yeah, but how much, and here's the thing I'm going to ask you with that, and I know we had an in-depth discussion about it, so I won't go too much in depth on it. How much do you put that blame on Matt LaFleur, and how much blame do you put on a guy that you don't really believe in Marcus Injury Mariota?
I mean, I definitely think that a big part of that does go to Marcus Mariota, but at the same time, we've seen flashes out of Mariota. We've seen him look really good. We've also seen him look bad. It's inconsistency and injuries. Matt LaFleur was this guy who was getting so much praise of he is going to be our next McVay. We just know it. And he gets over to Tennessee, offensive coordinator. He gets a little bit more control, and that offense isn't good.
So really, we could look at it and say maybe it was Sean McVay. It wasn't Matt LaFleur. It was Sean McVay that was so good. And then,
one of those offenses, one of those coaches has a good offense this year, and it's not Matt LaFleur.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna lean towards it's probably McVay.
Because the thing that I'm looking at right now is, this is postseason. I don't want postseason. I'm like, there are not that few teams in the NFL. If you look at this year alone, rushing total wise, Tennessee for yards overall was 7th. If you go for yards per attempt, Tennessee was 16th at 4.5. So kind of the middle of the pack rushing wise.
And that's a big thing with Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is not good until he gets going for like 6 yards. Once he gets going, he's a boulder and you can't tackle him.
Yeah, and they were 7th overall with 126.4 rushing yards per game. It was really the passing game for them that was not so good. Like, you look at their passing numbers, 29th overall, which maybe that changes with Aaron Rodgers. The Packers, to me, and it's my favorite word during draft season, interesting. And the reason why is, what do they do with the 2 picks? Do they go defense, offense? Do they go defense, defense? Because if you look at their needs, cornerback, tight end, linebacker, you have so many combinations you can do. You can go corner linebacker. You can go corner tight end because Noah Fant might be available there. I know in yours he went before, so that's why he didn't go there. But in mine, he didn't.
He would have gone there. To the Packers anyways.
Or they can say, you know what, screw that. We're just going to get Aaron and Matt weapons to work with in running back and wide receiver. Like, they are a team that can.
I would hope that the Packers have learned their lesson, though, of if we just ignore our defense, it'll be good. Because that's not something that works for them. The only time the Packers have really been that successful is when they've had 2 things, a good defense and a running game. And I know Aaron Rodgers is amazing, but when all you have is Aaron Rodgers, ask Peyton Manning how far that gets you. When the Colts only had Peyton Manning, they didn't really do that well. They got into the playoffs and they lost time and time again. What did the Packers do? Get to the playoffs and they lose because more complete, better teams are there in your way to your Super Bowl glory.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the last time the Packers had a above-average run game was when they had the Alabama running back Eddie Lacy, correct?
Yeah.
And the last thing I'll throw out about the Packers is, you know what else gets thrown in and which helps with your Brian Burns pick?
What's that?
Clay Matthews. He might not be a Packer next year.
Yeah.
He's an unrestricted free agent, and I would not be surprised if another team goes, hey, Clay, here's some money, and the Packers go, all right, bye. You're 32 years old. We're not going to pay you that much money.
Yep.
But this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you think down below in the comments section about any of the picks. We had 17 through 32. Also about the 2 teams we talked about in this segment, the Steelers and the Packers. What do you think about both of them moving forward as we continue on into draft season and draft coverage?